Death is the enemy. The first enemy, and the last.
But we all die.
The enemy always wins. And we still need to fight him. That's all I know. You and I won't find much joy while we're here.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 Plot Leak video. Today I am reading Season 8 Episode 4. I have been receiving tons of comments from people asking me to upload these videos as soon as possible, which I am, but I also have a full-time job. I only have a certain amount of hours per week that I can dedicate to making videos, and these videos do take a very long time to make, but I'm working as fast as I can. I figured I should let everyone know why there are days that I'm not able to upload something, because trust me, if I could upload every single day, I would. Hopefully you enjoy the direction this plot is going in, so without further ado, let's begin. Season 8 Episode 4. The opening scene is in Winterfell. Smoke is rising from several different areas of the castle. The battlements are littered with tens of thousands of corpses. Most of the bodies are burnt beyond recognition. The Night King's army is gathered inside of the castle walls now. Daenerys was able to do some significant damage to his numbers. The Night King and nearly a dozen White Walkers are walking through the Godswood to the Heart Tree. All of the leaves are now burnt off. The White Tree is now black, with pools of some dried red substance around the base of the Weirwood tree. Two of the giants come into the Godswood and push the tree over onto its side. The Night King then walks through the yard to head to the crypts of Winterfell. As he is walking through the yard, he picks up a weapon that was laying on the ground. It's one of the spears with the dragonglass tips. He looks at it almost as if he is inspecting its properties. He tosses the spear to the side, but then he puts his hand over his chest. He remembers the Children of the Forest shoving dragonglass into his own heart. When the Night King enters the crypts, he heads right to the lower level that is partially collapsed. The Night King has been here before. He knows exactly where he's going, and he looks down a tunnel that is freshly lit with candles. He knows people escaped, and he knows exactly where they are heading next. In the next scene, we see exactly who was able to escape through the secret passage. Davos, Tyrion, Sansa, Bran, Sam, Gilly and Little Sam, Missandei, and several others exit the tunnel. The escape route Jon had made up led them to the White Knife River. They had a few small boats stashed on the shore, that way they had faster transportation to take them down the river to White Harbor, which is where the rest of Dany's fleet is waiting. Davos was chosen to lead the party if they ever had to use this plan. He knows the waters better than anyone. The map says to wait at White Harbor until they can regroup. Davos, Tyrion, and Sam pull the two boats into the water and begin loading everyone into them. None of them know who is still alive. They went straight for the tunnel as soon as the horn was blown. Davos doesn't even know when Jon or Daenerys will meet them at White Harbor. All he knows is that's where he was told to go. As Davos and Sam go to lift Bran into the boat, they notice that he's not exactly conscious. His eyes are rolled back into his head, and his hands are still gripping the chair. Sam says he'll be fine. This isn't the first time he has seen Bran do this. Davos and Sam have to unlock his grip from the chair to get him into the boat. Daenerys, Jon, Jaime, Beric, the Hound, Brienne, Arya, Gendry, and a few others land at White Harbor. Jon says everyone else who escaped had a good head start, so they should be reaching the river sometime soon. Jon wants to leave the injured here, then fly up the river in hopes of locating his family. Daenerys voices her concern for Rhaegal. She hasn't seen him since he flew off after he was hit. Jaime tells Jon he will go with them. Although he did suffer some injuries trying to help Arya, he doesn't just want to sit by while others are heading back out into dangerous territories. Jon gives Jaime a nod and thanks him for helping him save his sister. Jon says, "I need to get the rest of my family out of the north immediately." He says Winterfell is gone, along with most of our men. We are going to need more help if we're ever going to stop the Night King. We can't allow him to take King's Landing, even if your sister is the one who is ruling there. Tyrion said there is 1 million people living there now. If the Night King turns that many people, we have lost. We need to talk to your sister. She must understand. We need the Golden Company, and we may need protection behind those walls. We are running out of options, sir. In the next scene, Theon and his men prepare to head for King's Landing now that it's beginning to get dark outside. They know the Iron Fleet will be sitting in the bay. They just need to slip in, grab Yara, and get the hell out of there before anyone's alerted. As Theon and his men walk across the beach, they notice a shadowy figure sitting in their boat. Theon is stunned when he sees who is waiting for them. It's the Spider, Varys. There are no other boats in sight, and Varys is completely dry. They have no idea how he arrived at Dragonstone. When Theon asks Varys why he is here, all he says is, "I'm coming with you." Back in King's Landing, Qyburn meets with Cersei and Euron to tell them about some recent reports he has been receiving through his little birds. Qyburn tells them that Daenerys Targaryen's fleet is at White Harbor. She has abandoned Dragonstone while they battle in the north. Her fleet is the only means for transporting her large force quickly. They know Jon said the army of the dead cannot swim, so Cersei doesn't want to allow Jon and Daenerys to have a way to flee to the sea. So, Cersei tells Euron to take some pots of wildfire to White Harbor and burn all of their ships. Euron says, "I will do this, but not until after I spend another night in the Red Keep." In the next scene, Bran opens his eyes after he comes out of his visions. Sam is sitting next to him, and he asks Bran if everything is okay. Bran had been out of it for quite some time, and his hands are starting to callous from the way he keeps gripping onto his chair. Bran says he's fine, but he doesn't quite understand why he saw what he saw this time. Sam says, "What did you see? Was it the Night King? Is he getting close to us again?" Bran says no. Then he looks at Gilly, and he says, "I saw your son, little Sam. He was crying and surrounded by fires." Everyone on the boat looks very concerned by the tone of Bran's voice. Gilly wraps her arms tightly around her son. Davos tells Gilly not to worry. They will be at White Harbor soon enough, then they can get them on a ship and out to the sea, and get far away from here. Bran says, "We won't be getting on any ships. Jon is coming to get us now." Then he looks back to Gilly and says, "Does your son like dragons?" Gilly doesn't even want to look at Bran, but then a dragon appears. It has a big hole in its right wing. Rhaegal seems to be following them down the river. Back at White Harbor, Daenerys, Jon, and Jaime prepare to leave at dawn, so they can find the rest of the survivors. Jon tells Beric and the Hound to find some food and make sure everyone gets something to eat. They might not have many chances after they leave. Arya helps Brienne clean out the wound in her leg and get it wrapped up. One of the Whites buried a sword deep into her thigh. She can barely stand, let alone fight. The Hound walks over to Arya and Brienne, and he says, "I hope you aren't asking her for mercy, because she won't give it to you. Most men would die from a wound like that, but I'm sure you will have your foot in someone's ass in no time." The sun is starting to come up. Jon and Daenerys and Jaime walk over to climb on Drogon. Jon looks back to Arya and says, "If we aren't back by sundown, all of you need to take one of the ships to Dragonstone. The Night King's army won't be able to reach you there. We need to find Sansa, Bran, and the others as soon as possible, then get everyone out of here." Jon and Arya hug, then he climbs on Drogon, and they head up the river. In the next scene, Euron and Cersei are laying in bed together. Cersei is still asleep, but Euron is starting to wake up. He rolls over and looks at Cersei. He starts to run his finger across her lips. Then he moves his hands further and further down, until it's under the blankets. Euron puts his hand between Cersei's thighs, and he can feel a wetness on his fingertips. He pulls his hand from under the blankets, and he can see they are covered in blood. Euron rips the blankets off Cersei, and he can see that most of the bed is covered in blood also. Cersei wakes up when she feels the cold air hit her naked body. She can see Euron standing over her with a strange look on his face. Cersei then sits up and is completely horrified by what she is seeing. She begins screaming and crying. The Mountain comes into the room with his sword drawn, expecting to see Cersei in a struggle. Euron puts his hands up, but the Mountain walks right past him. He grabs one of the sheets and wraps Cersei up. Then he carries her out of the room. Euron gets dressed, and he leaves the room with a twisted smile on his face. As he is walking across the throne room, one of the Lannister guards walks up to him and tells him there is something he needs to see. They go outside and walk down to the water. When Euron gets closer to the bay, he stops in his tracks, and he has a look of shock on his face. Almost all of his Iron Fleet is gone. The Silence is still there, but that's about it. Euron quickly boards the Silence. There are several men on the deck with their throats slit. When Euron enters the main cabin, he can see that Yara is gone. There is a dagger sticking into the wall with a note pinned under it. All the note says is, "What is dead may never die." Euron pulls the dagger from the note, and then he turns to the Lannister guard. He calmly says to the guard, "How does someone sneak into the bay and make off with an entire fleet?" Before the man can mutter a single word, Euron jams the dagger into his throat. Euron leaves the silence and walks back into the city. Euron meets with a few men of the city watch. They then head to the chambers where the commander of the Golden Company is staying. When they enter the room, it's completely empty. He tells the captain of the city watch to gather up all of his men and find the Golden Company. Check every brothel, every inn, or anywhere else they might be. The city watch enter every house or establishment within the city. The Golden Company is gone, along with most of the Ironborn men that weren't killed on the ships. Euron is furious. He orders the captain to bring him every man that was on watch last night. These men were extremely incompetent, or they were paid off. Either way, they will all be killed. Back on Dragonstone, Theon has dozens of men getting as much dragonglass out of the caves as possible. Then they are leaving again and going north. Theon now has an entire fleet with over 20,000 men. They will need to arm as many as possible with dragonglass. When Theon exits the cave, he walks over to Yara, who is standing on the beach. Theon looks at Yara for several moments, and his eyes start to fill up with tears. Yara has blood and bruises all over her still, and Euron had her tongue removed. Theon says, "Yara, I am sorry. I'm sorry I left you, and I'm sorry for what he did to you. I'm sorry." Yara steps forward and wraps her arms around Theon to embrace him. She is still thankful to be alive. Varys and the commander of the Golden Company are standing on the beach also. The commander shakes Varys' hand and says, "It's good to see you again, my old friend." He says, "Ilario told me you would come for us, but I wasn't sure if you were still alive." Before they can finish their conversation, they spot several ships approaching the beach. All of the men on the beach begin to scramble for their weapons. It takes Varys a few moments to recognize the banner waving on the ship. When it stops flapping in the wind, Varys has a fearful look on his face. The banner is displaying the flaming heart. Melisandre and Kinvara have arrived. Melisandre and Kinvara walk onto the beach and begin to approach Varys. The red rubies they are wearing on their throats are glowing brighter than ever. Melisandre says, "Hello, dear spider." Kinvara places a hand on Varys, and she says, "Do we still serve the same queen?" Varys nods his head, and Kinvara says, "Good. You are coming with us. All of you must come with us. It's time we play our final part in the war." Darkness has fell over Winterfell. The king and the queen will be back at White Harbor soon, but that's not where we're going. Varys, you must ride with us. Tell your men it's time to leave. In the next scene, Daenerys, Jon, and Jaime spot Rhaegal in the sky above the river. There are a few small boats below him. They have found Sansa, Bran, and the rest of the survivors. Rhaegal and Drogon both begin to cry out to each other, and Davos tells everyone they are going to the shore. Jon and Daenerys are here. Jon embraces his family when they exit the boats. They begin to load everyone on the back of Drogon and fly back to White Harbor to regroup with the others. Before they take off, Bran tells Jon when they get to White Harbor they need to speak. There isn't much time left. Back at White Harbor, Arya and Gendry begin telling everyone to prepare to leave. It's starting to get dark outside. Jon said if they aren't back by sundown, we need to board a ship and go to Dragonstone. The Night King might be heading this way as we speak. We cannot stay here long. Beric Dondarrion stands up and says, "They're here." Both dragons come up from behind them and they land. They rush over to see who has made it out of Winterfell alive. They start helping everyone off of the dragons. And when Arya sees Jaime, she says, "Thank you for helping my family." Then she reaches out to shake hands. Jon helps Bran down and says, "Let's talk." Bran says, "Do you want to speak in private?" And Jon says, "No. If there is something I must know, just say it." Everyone starts to look at Jon and Bran, and Sam already knows what's about to come next. Bran says, "Jon, you aren't exactly who you think you are. There is a great power in you that you never knew you had, but I'm sure you've always felt it. Why do you think you rose from the dead? Why do you think you found the direwolves? Why do you think my father never told you who your mother was? Jon, you have the blood of ice and fire. You are the song of ice and fire. The three-eyed raven showed me your birth. It wasn't just so I could see who your parents were. It's because you are the one who will have to bring the dawn. Every time I try to look for answers about how to defeat the Night King, all I see are images that point to you. Ned Stark is not your father. You are the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. You are the one who is destined to defeat the Night King, but we must act fast. These revelations shock everyone who is listening. There are nearly 24 people with all of their eyes on Jon. Everyone is silent. Jon is struggling to process everything that Bran has just said to him. Sam steps forward and says it's true. He pulls out a rolled up parchment from his pocket and he hands it to Jon. It's the record of Rhaegar's annulment with Elia Martell and the secret marriage in Dorne. Bran says, "You've never been a bastard, Jon. You are the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. Your true name is Aegon Targaryen." This new revelation stuns Daenerys Targaryen. Her eyes are filling up with tears, and she places her hand onto her stomach. Sansa and Arya are at a loss for words. Bran says, "I know all of this must be hard to grasp right now. When all of this is over, you will know that it's the truth." Finally, Jon says something. He starts to shake his head and say none of this makes any sense. Why wouldn't Father tell me? Bran says your mother made him promise. He couldn't allow anyone to find out who your father was. Robert Baratheon would have killed you. Robert loved Lyanna, but she didn't love him. Rhaegar never kidnapped Lyanna. She loved him, and together they had you. Rhaegar said you would be the Song of Ice and Fire. That day has finally come. There is one more thing you must do in order to stop the Night King. You will kill him, Jon, but it won't be here. It's time to go. The Night King has left Winterfell, and he's coming for all of us. Everyone begins to walk away so they can get on one of the ships. Bran tells everyone to stop. It will take too long if they travel by ship. They will need to fly there. Bran says we must go to the Trident. I have seen the battlefield in my visions. The Lady in Red will be there. Daenerys says, "Melisandre?" She then says, "I won't be able to fly everyone there on Drogon. There is too many people and Rhaegal won't let them on without a rider." Daenerys and Bran both look to Jon. Bran says, "You are a Targaryen, Jon. You must believe. There is power in you, and you need to embrace it. Do not deny it." Daenerys says, "He's right, Jon. I should have known by the way Drogon bonded with you immediately. Viserion died trying to save you. I named Rhaegal after my brother, your father. It must be you that mounts him." Jon knows they have no other choice, so he walks over to Rhaegal, and he walks right up to his face and he begins to pet him. Jon begins to whisper something to the dragon. Then he slowly walks around him and climbs on top. When Jon sits down, Rhaegal lets out a scream so loud that little Sam begins to cry. Rhaegal stretches out his wings and flaps them a few times. Sansa and Arya can't believe what they are seeing, but before anyone has much time to react, Jon yells down, "Let's go." Half of them climb on Drogon with Daenerys, and the rest get on with Jon. They take flight and head straight for the Trident. In the next scene, Euron enters Qyburn's lab room. He had been examining Cersei after she miscarried. Cersei lost a significant amount of blood. Qyburn was keeping her sedated with one of his potions. Euron tells Cersei what has happened. Most of his fleet is gone. The Ironborn are gone. The Golden Company are gone. Euron says he has no reason to stay in the city. Cersei doesn't have enough Lannister men in the city watch to hold King's Landing. He's taking the silence and leaving. Cersei says, "Wait." She sits up and says, "I thought you said you were a king. You promised you would never abandon me. And now you want to leave because we lost some men and boats? We haven't lost yet. I still have one thing they do not." Daenerys said the army of the dead is 100,000 strong. Have patience. The dead will crush our enemies for us. Daenerys already lost one dragon. She will lose the rest. King's Landing is well protected. No one will enter through our gates. Even if they somehow manage to breach them, there won't be a city left to rule. The plans were already set in motion before you arrived. Now, you said you wanted to rule Westeros together and crush our enemies together. You say you need a queen at your side, but you are only king of the Iron Islands. How about I make you a true king, and together we can watch all of our enemies burn alive? Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of episode 4. It's looking like everything is going to explode in episode 5. which kinda makes sense because the episode right before the finale are usually the biggest in terms of production. Miguel Sapochnik will definitely have his hands full if he has to direct something like this. Let me know how you felt about the episode. Put all your thoughts and questions down below. I want to give a special shout out to everyone that has been signing up to my Patreon. The amount of support I received in the last 2 weeks has been absolutely crazy, and I cannot thank you all enough. I'm almost making enough to be able to make YouTube videos full time. I'm getting closer and closer to the goal on Patreon, so I just wanted to take an extra few moments to tell everyone how much I appreciate that. I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope to see you all come back for episode 5. I will see you soon. Bye.